What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be going over fleets for Territory Wars. I'm going to talk about kind of like my opinion where each fleet ranks in terms of early to mid game and then as well as late game, and kind of like hopefully give you guys an idea on like which ones to focus on for your guild and which ones you can probably, not prioritize as much. So let's go ahead and get started. In my opinion, I think the most valuable fleet you can have, doesn't matter where your guild is at in the game, is going to be Executor. I think Executor is the GOAT. Um, the farming requirements aren't that bad comparable to kind of where it was, a few years ago when it first released. But Executor is just really, really good, guys, for several reasons. I mean, you have three different comps you can run with, but you have Triple Attacker, which consists of Razor Crest, IG-2000, and Xanadu Blood. You have the standard comp, which, you have Xanadu, Razor Crest, and Houndstooth. And then every once in a while, there'll be a comp that involves Slave 1 in the starting lineup, as well as, I think it's Razor Crest, Slave 1, and Houndstooth, and then Xanadu's supposed to reinforce. It's not that great of a comp, but it pops up every once in a while. But I don't think that comp's ever coming back now that we have Leviathan, and fleets have kind of just been very stagnant for the last year or so. But anyways, it's a great fleet. It's you can set it on defense at 4-star, 5-star, 6-star. It's great. And it's almost always going to be in your front fleet. Like, because in Territory Wars you get your front fleet and your back fleet. You only get two fleets you get to set. But Executor is almost like 99% of the time there. Super super good. If you're in a early to mid range guild, I would say you can take it on offense, but it definitely shines on defense, and it's just really really good. Not much else to say other than that. I think it should be your first Galactic Legend fleet your guild should focus on. All right, another fleet I'm going to put up in the S tier is it's going to be Negotiator. And again, the way I do my ranking systems, guys, is the one to the left is like if there's a tiebreaker between these two, the one on the left I think is better. Negotiator, guys. Negotiator has been meta ever since it came out. I remember they tried to disrupt the Negotiator meta with Executor, and it kind of worked. Obviously, I mean, Executor is in a completely different class than Negotiator, but Negotiator is just super super good, guys. Insanely good. The Marauder really just elevates that team. Yeah, Negotiator is amazing, and you can put it on defense. You can take it on offense. It can counter Executor. I think it can counter Profundity a little bit. It's a little wonky. I think it can also set up a 2-shot for Leviathan. So I mean, it's really good. I think most times you're gonna see it on offense, but it's just a nasty fleet, and it's kind of stood the test of time. I would definitely recommend you tell your guild to get your Marauders a 7-star. Definitely start investing in your Bad Batch squad to get higher relics. Like, higher relics on these two fleets really really matter. When I say high relics, I'm talking R8, R9, R7 minimum on everything on these fleets. But yeah, no, Negotiator is just really, really good. And that's kind of like, your best non-Galactic Legend fleet, in my opinion. Next up, we have Grievous. I'm going to put Grievous just under the S tier. I don't think Grievous is quite S tier. But Malevolence is good for a lot of reasons. I think it's the most budget-friendly fleet you can have in this game, just because there's like no ships. This fleet makes its own ships, so you really just need to invest in like Sunfac and maybe the Geonosian Spy, and that's kind of it. It's a great fleet. Geonosian Spy really allows this fleet to be set on defense sometimes, just to kind of trip people up, because when it comes in as a reinforcement, you have that RNG factor of you don't know who it's going to put the taunt on. And that can sometimes disrupt your opponent and maybe cause them to lose a couple banners here and there. But it's great because you really only have to level up Grievous for your whole fleet. So it's a good cheap alternative, especially if you're just in a guild that's just starting to get the TW competitively. I would recommend taking your Grievous at least to R8. Just because, like I said, it's a good budget fleet. Really saves you a lot of resources, and you can't really go wrong with it. I wouldn't recommend relying on it as a offensive fleet just because you do lose a lot of banners on offense. Just like Grievous in offense, you know, you lose half your squad most of the time. So it's a good defense option, but I wouldn't recommend it for offense for efficient banners. All right, next up on the list is Profundity, and I'm gonna put Profundity. I'm gonna put Profundity in the A squad behind Malevolence actually, and kind of for the opposite reason with Malevolence is Profundity. It really didn't have the same impact as the Executor. Profundity is good because it counters Executor, I suppose. Um, but it's just an expensive fleet. It's really tough for a lot of people to get. Um, and yeah, it's a good offensive counter. It's like your main Executor beater, I guess. That's like really safe to use. But for the most part, the amount of effort you have to get into it just to get another Executor counter, I've never really been a fan of Profundity. It's not that it's a bad fleet. It's just it doesn't have the same weight or impact as Executor. And Profundity on defense can be beaten by Negotiator, could also be beaten by Tarkin. So it's just not the best defensive fleet. And I think right now it makes life easier for offense. So, but again, you don't need it. It's just that I think that is probably the best way to describe Profundity. You don't need it, and that's kind of why I put it in the A tier, not the S tier. It definitely doesn't deserve the B tier, but it's just one of those fleets where it's like, it just, if there was 3 fleets like GAC, yes, this would be in the S tier immediately. But because there's only 2 fleets, you don't really need a whole lot in Territory Wars. All right, our first B tier squad is going to be Tarkin. Tarkin surprisingly actually did have some pretty good use before we had Leviathan. A lot of people were throwing all the Sith ships underneath Tarkin, which was kind of annoying. You had the bomber, you had the Fury, and it kind of made a really good defensive fleet until Leviathan actually came out. But until then, Tarkin really just doesn't have any use right now. I think he does a better job using Empire to counter like resistance. Like you can get full banners against resistance with Tarkin. Grievous, but again, most people aren't going to be setting Grievous a whole lot. It's all about getting the most amount of banners you can. Dropping banners on fleets can sometimes cause you, the entire territory war. But yeah, Tarkin again. I would bump him up one more tier if we had a set 3 ships. But unfortunately, because it's only 2, I'm going to put him at the B tier. All right, next up we have Hux, and I'm actually going to put Hux. Ooh, this is a tough one. I don't know if I want to put him A or B. I'm probably gonna put him B, but I'm gonna put him in front of Tarkin. So Hux is really good early game. I think early game he'd probably be an A for most people, but then late game he starts to drop down to a B. Early game you can counter Executor. If you're in a guild where you're fighting a bunch of Executors, that's their only Galactic Legend ship. If they're setting the normal Houndstooth comp or even the triple attacker comp, most first order fleets, even at base relic level, when I mean by base relic level, I mean like the levels you need to unlock SLKR, you can counter Executor. It's not going to be clean, but you can get the one shot. You might drop a lot of banners, but it is doable. So having that as a flexibility option for offense really, I think, helps. But in terms of like late game, there's not really much there. This definitely gets moved to like a cleanup squad. And making sure if you use it as a cleanup squad, you're going to get all your banners. But yeah, it's a good fleet early game, but I wouldn't recommend investing too much into it for late game. All right, Mace Windu, we're just going to get this one out of the way. This is going to go down to the D squad, D tier. I don't think I've ever used Mace in Territory Wars. Yeah, there's not really much to say. There really isn't. I'm trying to think of any silver linings here. Yeah, I mean, if you're using Mace, that means you've blown through all your other capital ships, and that means you're probably not doing very well. So that's going to be the floor for the ranking system, I suppose. Ackbar, I'm going to actually put Ackbar at C. Ackbar's not terrible. Not terrible. I think early game he's a great capital ship. I actually really like Ackbar. Fun fact, before Executor came out, I was actually throwing all the bounty hunters under Ackbar. With Razor Crest, and it worked out really, really well, because if you look at Ackbar's kit. It's very simple for one, which is, you know, I like simple things. But it's also very generic. There's only like one thing that calls out rebels. It's everything else is just very generic synergy. So you can run literally any ships with Akbar, and his kit doesn't change, which is kind of nice. So hopefully one day we'll get Red 5 or something like to boost up the Akbar squad, because I really like the Raven's Claw, and I think it'd be really cool to run that with the X-Wings and possibly Red 5. But he's a better cleanup squad than Mace, obviously. But early game, he's not that bad because, like I said, you can use him with pretty much anybody. All right, next up, I'm gonna put Holdo. I'm actually gonna put Holdo in the C tier. And I'll do this. I'll put Akbar behind Holdo because that just makes sense. I know a lot of people have the comeuppance, and you know people are talking about it, but in reality, like I said, it's because we only have to deal with 2 capital ships. That Holdo's gonna be down there. Again, I don't think I've ever used Holdo in TW. I'm not saying that she has a bad fleet. It's just there are just better options ahead of her. The other thing too is a lot of people don't really invest in the Holdo fleet because a lot of people just don't like the characters or don't use those characters in GAC. So it I don't want to say this like a luxury fleet, but it kind of becomes this fleet where unless you really like your Phoenix or you really just like ships, most people just don't invest in it. I still haven't really invested in it that much. So not saying it's a bad fleet. It's just when it comes to territory wars, like you're really not going to be using it. All right, last 2 fleets. We have Leviathan. Oof, I'm probably going to need some heat for this, but I really don't want to put him in the S tier. I really don't. I'd rather do like a middle ground between A and S. But I'm going to go ahead and do S tier, I guess, just because of the investment. I am going to put him behind everybody, though. I think he's going to be the worst S tier fleet. So, Leviathan, it's the newest Galactic Legend capital ship that we have in the game. It's almost been out for close to a year now. But this is one of those fleets you're going to want to get endgame, okay? And the reason I say that is because of the investment. You need to get the Fury, and then you also need to get Malgus. So you have 2 conquest units that you have to invest in. And you know what? Because of that, I am going to drop it to an A. I'm going to drop it to an A, but I'm going to make it, I'm going to put it in the front. Yeah, okay. That's why I was like contemplating it. It's going to be an A because you have to get 2 conquest units. And for endgame players too, it would probably jump up to an S. But I'm saying for majority of people, it's probably going to be an A just because of you have to get Malgus, you have to get the Fury. I know Executor have to get the Razor Crest, but Razor Crest has been out for so long. Majority of people either have unlocked it by now or are very close to, and they're still working on it. Leviathan also still requires a few R9s. They're not bad R9s though, you know, they're not terrible R9s, but you know, it is a very steep investment. And the other thing too with Leviathan compared to Executor, the other thing too I mentioned about Executor is that Executor is playable at 4-star, 5-star, and 6-star. Yes, I know you don't unlock everyone's full kit until you know, they get 7-starred, but the thing with Leviathan is they added changes to the fleet when it came out. Excuse me. Where it really doesn't stop certain counters until it's a 7-star fleet. So again, it's a very steep investment, and even when you unlock the ship, you're still not done. So I'm gonna put it in the A tier just because of how expensive it is. It's always going to be on defense most of the time. Some people like to keep it on offense for the mirrors, and mirrors can get a little tricky. But I would say majority of the time, it'll probably pop up on defense for most people. All right, Chimera. Chimera is going to go in the S tier, believe it or not. Chimera does sometimes require a few conquest units, though. So it does usually require the Interceptor, and it also requires the Scythe to counter Leviathan, which is, again, 2 conquest units. However, Chimera is a lot easier to unlock. There's no Relic 9s that are required. A lot of the ships are going to be ships that you probably already have. And the other thing too with Chimera is for guilds that are in like the early to mid tier level, it's a great counter to Negotiator. Like I said, Negotiator is, like I said, the best non-GL capital ship that we have. And it probably will stay like that forever because the fleet is just so well built And every time they do anything to the fleet meta, which they don't do much anyways, Negotiator kind of just doesn't care. Negotiator does not care at all, guys. So Chimera is a great counter to Negotiator, especially once you get the TIE Interceptor. Once you get the Scythe, I know the Scythe has more synergy with Tarkin, but we already discussed Tarkin. It, you know, if there was 3 fleets in TW, it'd be more relevant. But the Scythe will give you the counter to Leviathans. But in the meantime, like I said, you could also use Chimera to counter Executor. You know, you could just throw the TIE Defender out there and just dodge a bunch, and you're good to go. But yeah, guys, that's gonna be the list of fleets for Territory Wars. You know, let me know down in the comments what you guys think, if you agree or disagree with me. I hope we get another capital ship this year. I would really like to see Trench get one. I think there's a lot of cool things they could do with Separatists. But yeah, this is pretty much the meta. I would say, like, if you took those top fleets, the top 6, that's pretty much what you're going to be seeing on offense or defense at the top end of TW. The bottom 5 fleets, like from B to D tier, we don't really see or use them. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I'm going to be doing my GAC later sometime tonight. I'm not too sure what time. I'm not going to go super late, but we'll be doing our GAC later. Yeah, guys, other than that, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.